Joe Rogan's sold-out show in Vancouver has been officially canceled and is due to the vaccine mandates. In a recent episode of the Joe Rogan Experience with guest Tim Dillon, Rogan said he didn't know if the show was going to happen. He didn't even think he'd be able to get into the country. Now we have formal confirmation from Ticketmaster. The show has been canceled by the event organizers. Interestingly, in the podcast, Joe mentions that it might not be canceled, but he was saying, we don't know if they're going to pull this BS where they say at the last minute, you know what, we're cutting capacity in half and then just refund half the people anyway. So Joe Rogan came out and said he wasn't vaccinated. He wasn't getting vaccinated. He has antibodies and it makes no sense. And this is huge. Joe Rogan performed at Madison Square Garden. They had a vaccine mandate. He did not cancel the show. I was a bit critical. I was saying Joe should. He should say, no way, I'm not doing this. But to be fair, I don't know about the internal workings of Joe Rogan's company and the contract he may have had with Madison Square Garden. And he did offer up refunds to anybody who didn't want to go because of the vaccine mandates. But my attitude was still like, dude, if you're this opposed to vaccine mandates, if you are this adamantly against it, take a stand and say no way. Because even if you're offering up refunds, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be like, I will abide by the mandate because Joe Rogan is one of the funniest comedians ever. I got to be honest, I've seen a lot of comedy shows, and I got to tell you, Joe, second funniest. And I mean it. I'm not trying to be a dick. No, Joe Rogan is legit. I've seen a lot of comedy shows. Second funniest show I've ever saw was Joe Rogan. The first was Andrew Doyle and Jonathan Pye. Because I'll be honest with you guys, I think Joe's fantastic. But Jonathan Pye and Andrew Doyle, he's the guy who does Titanium McGrath. It was so funny. I was in physical pain to the point where I was like, I might have to leave the room. Not even kidding. Anyway, I'm just being an ass. Joe Rogan's amazing, and there's a lot of people who want to see him so bad that they'll abide by this vax mandate. But here's what I said, later on the issue, or I added to my point. When it comes to Joe Rogan not canceling for Madison Square Garden, you've got a city mandate, which what's he going to do? Break this contract? Madison Square Garden's going to be like, you're on the hook for tens of millions of dollars, and then Joe's like, when it comes to the vaccine mandate in New York, Joe signed up for this. He signed this deal to do this event, whatever the deal was, I don't know. And then they spring the vaccine mandate on right before the show's supposed to happen, when everything's already done, already organized. And there are a lot of companies involved in setting this up. So Joe was probably of the opinion, like, I can't just shut it all down. It doesn't work that way. There's penalties, there's repercussions, there's collateral damage to people's lives. Now, when it comes to Canada, Joe can't even go to Canada. So there you go. Now, I want to read through this and show you what Joe said, but I also think it's very important to point out New Year's is canceled, my friends. Fauci says to cancel New Year's Eve parties as millions struggle for normalcy 2 years into the pandemic, and cities across the globe are canceling New Year's Eve celebrations over Omicron. All right, here it is. Your holidays are gone. And I think I can tell you a little bit about why it's happening, why they're shutting down your holidays, why travel is being completely disrupted. Could be just COVID. Could be something else. But let's read this story from timcast.com. Joe Rogan's sold-out Vancouver show canceled due to vaccine mandates. Comedian and podcast host Joe Rogan said his sold-out April show in Canada is unlikely to take place because of the vaccine mandates. Quote, I don't even think I can get into the country. I don't think I can go. And even if I do go, I don't trust that Vancouver is not going to follow suit with what Toronto did, where they cut capacity to 50%. He added, I'm not vaccinated. I'm not going to get vaccinated. I have antibodies. It doesn't make any sense. Ticketmaster confirmed the show has been canceled, noting that all tickets should be refunded without purchasers needing to take any action. The April 20th show was scheduled to take place in Vancouver at the Rogers Arena, home of the Vancouver Canucks. Canucks Sports and Entertainment released a statement on December 17th announcing new limits on the event center's capacity due to regulations issued by the government of British Columbia. So over at Ticketmaster.ca, it says, event canceled. Unfortunately, the event organizer has had to cancel your event. No action is required to obtain a refund. It will be processed to the original method of payment used at the time. Time of purchase once funds are received from the event organizer, which is usually completed within 30 days. If the event organizer is offering a credit option, you will be given blah, blah, blah. Please note if the tickets were transferred to you, the refund will go to the fan who originally purchased the tickets from Ticketmaster. See our policy. And that's it. Shut down. Joe Rogan's a very, very wealthy man. So this isn't that big of a deal. I mean, it's a big deal. It is. Joe, when he does these events, he talks about things like this. He calls out things like this on left or right. Doesn't matter. That's important. That's a sane person coming out and saying, yo, heads up, like, check this out, and making it funny and making it relatable. They shut that down. Joe does lose money on this one, probably a lot of money. Yeah, but Joe is a wealthy guy. So here's what I mean to say. There's a lot of people who don't have the resources of Joe Rogan who are having their events shut down as well. And it's everything. If there's someone who makes like a couple grand and they do like 1 or 2 shows a month, a big show that's going to get them a couple grand, having a show shut down could be paying your rent. So we got to pay attention to how this is serious. And we shouldn't be saying it's fine. Joe can afford it. That's a ridiculous notion. Quote, as per the announcement today by the province of BC, British Columbia, I believe, and the provincial health minister, capacities at Rogers Arena and Abbotsford Centre will be reduced to 50% as of Monday, December 20th, with rising COVID-19 cases. Joe Rogan called it. We continue to work closely with local health authorities as we support each other to keep the community safe as the pandemic continues. To enter the arena, all staff, guests, and employees must show proof of full COVID-19 vaccination. Unvaccinated people, as well as those who are partially vaccinated, will be denied entry. And of course, that means now, 3 vaccines? On the same day, Canada's national government announced an expansion to COVID-19 travel restrictions in an effort to contain the spread of the Omicron variant. These measures, guided by prudence, are intended to reduce the transmission of the Omicron variant in Canada and help provinces and territories slow community spread. So we know it's confirmed. Fauci is saying shut down your New Year's. Now, I can't tell you the why. Telling you why it's happening would require me to read the minds of people like Dr. Fauci. I can tell you what is happening. I'd like y'all to think back to when you were a kid. And not all of you, but many of you may remember waking up on Christmas morning, running to the tree where there are presents littered all about. There is a cookie on a plate with a glass of warm milk next to it, and the cookie has but a single bite. Because Santa, of course, can't eat all the cookies. I mean, he's a portly fella, but he has to take the one bite, put it down. Many of you may have other holiday tradition memories. Hanukkah, for instance, another prominent holiday. But many of you probably had Christmas, the overwhelming majority. It's going away. Kids today who are growing up in the pandemic are not going to remember these traditions. They're going to remember the weird, the strange, the suffering, the pain. Now, many people are having their holidays, but a lot of people are canceling it. So what happens when you're a kid who doesn't grow up with these traditions, at least for the past 2 years? Substantial portion of your life. If you're 10 years old, I mean, this is 20% of your life. You're not going to hold as much. You're not going to value it as much. It's almost like the culture is being stripped away. And now Fauci says cancel New Year's Eve parties. Cancel your New Year's Eve parties? The ball drops and we're all screaming and we do it every hour for 24 hours, basically. Not everybody. Yeah, all this is going away. When we cancel these, kids are going to grow up without these traditions, without these celebrations, and that will weaken them. It won't completely get rid of them because I went to 6 Christmas parties yesterday. It's very exhausting. But we did. We went around. It was fun. Met people. I went to one house where I had like 8 or 9 jalapeno poppers, like real ones, though, bacon wrapped jalapenos with cheese and bacon. Oh, it was so good. Not like the breaded fried stuff you get in the freezer. No, these were legit. Sliced in half, all that good stuff. Christmas parties are fun. We see family, we meet people, we talk to other people. I met a guy who was telling me about all the crazy travels he's done. He went to Ukraine and he went to the reactor. And I was like, you went to the reactor in Pripyat, Chernobyl? Cool stories, cool fun, connecting with people. Being wiped away. Fauci wants to cancel our New Year's Eve parties now. Well, let me tell you something. There's a viral video going around. And it is Lori Lightfoot of Chicago wishing everyone a happy Kwanzaa. There's also a viral tweet from college Republicans on Twitter that says happy Kwanzaa. Now, a lot of people are critical of Kwanzaa. I don't care all too much about Kwanzaa. I don't know. It's another holiday. People, people on the right are bringing up that it was invented in 1966 by, black nationalists, that it was. And the idea was that they would create a holiday for the black community because their history, they didn't have these traditions being brought over here as slaves. But there is something that I think is dangerous that should be pointed out. Over at the Wikipedia for Kwanzaa, it says, Karenga, who is a major figure in the Black Power movement of the 60s and 70s, the creation of such holidays also underscored the essential premise that, quote, you must have a cultural revolution before the violent revolution. The cultural revolution gives identity, purpose, and direction. I think Karenga is completely correct. That's Maulana Karenga, who created Kwanzaa in 1966 during the aftermath of the Watts riots. Malenga Karenga is right. You don't have to like what Marenga says. But in order for there to be a violent revolution, you must have a cultural revolution. Not completely, not always, but it's a good point. In the United States, if we start doing away with our holidays, traditions, and values, what happens? You end up with two distinct tribes, and then you're on the verge of a violent revolution. Imagine if all the people who grew up believing in certain American values, the Fifth Amendment, the Sixth Amendment, the First, the Second, the Third, the Fourth, the Fifth, all of it, those traditions get wiped away. A cultural revolution occurs. Then you can have a large faction of people sweep out violently the old guard. It's scary. And in many ways dangerous, because revolution doesn't mean good. It just means change. Change isn't always good. In fact, we've preserved a lot of really important traditions that have made civil rights. We've pushed civil rights to the forefront. We've expanded those. We've banned many things. We've boycotted companies. We have tremendously expanded civil rights through the values that we have retained. If we are to eliminate those, civil rights go out the window. That's my fear. That's what's happening. In countries without Western values, there are no civil rights. It's really fascinating that you have these people who hate America, and the rights of minorities have been safeguarded and enshrined thanks to the values we have as a Western nation. And if you look at countries in the East, they don't have these things. And it's a whole lot worse for a whole lot of people. But here we go. There is a cultural revolution taking place. And Karenga's correct, in a sense. I don't know if you need it, but it precipitates it, right? If people erase our cultural traditions and it is supplanted by a larger, growing, and more violent culture, then violence will break out. There will be a violent revolution. Now let's talk about New Year's, though. Fauci. Top White House coronavirus advisor Anthony Fauci said on CNN Monday morning that Americans should cancel their New Year's Eve parties due to the increasing spread of the Omicron coronavirus variant, as Americans struggle to find some normalcy as the pandemic wraps up its second year. I would stay away from that, Fauci said when asked about the annual parties on CNN's New Day. I have been telling people consistently that if you're vaccinated and boosted and you have a family setting in the home with family and relatives, it's okay to gather. But when you're talking about a New Year's Eve party, we have 30, 40, 50 people celebrating. You do not know the status of their vaccination. I would recommend strongly stay away from that this year. New York has a record COVID cases. Israel is now saying 4 shots. Your pathetic crackpot lockdown BS is not the way forward. Never was. And we learn that now because we have the gift of hindsight. Now, by all means, I think you talk to a doctor about what makes sense for you. And I stress this point every time. And it's not just because YouTube says, you can't give medical advice or whatever. It's because I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I can't tell you about the science. What I can tell you is that Florida, people are moving to Florida in droves, and they're leaving California in droves. And Florida has some of the lowest cases and lowest deaths in the country. And they don't have these lockdowns. These policies from Fauci have been burning this country to the ground. And the crackpot psychotic despot has a smile on his face as he does it and says, I am the science. No, you're not. You're a past his prime crackpot who works in a room with a painting of himself, talking about all these stupid policies that aren't working. Policy. It's ridiculous. And you have people cowering in fear. But hey, next year we have an election. So don't be surprised if it gets that much worse. Fauci's advice comes on the heel as many officials are telling Americans they should shun unvaccinated family members. Oh, you know what, man? This is crazy to me. Cities across the globe cancel New Year's Eve celebrations over Omicron. I'm going to tell you what we're going to do for New Year's. I'm going to tell you so you can partake. We're going to the casino, baby. We are going to enjoy a fine bottle of Trump champagne that I got from the Trump Hotel. I'm not kidding. We went to the Trump Hotel and you open the fridge and there's a bottle of Trump brand champagne. And we're going to open that and enjoy it. And we're going to have some steak. Everyone's going to get a little bit of steak, and we're going to have like a pregame at the house with everybody, and then we're going to go to the casino. Local casino out here. You can go find it, Hollywood Casino. That's where we'll be hanging out. And we're going to have a good time. And, here's what you do when you celebrate, when you go to these places. You don't bring a ton of money. You don't go there to win. You go there to play. The house always wins. The house has the edge. Okay, I've been talking about casino lately because we've gone over the past couple of weekends. But you go there for fun. They have a nice steakhouse. They got restaurants. They're opening the new Barstool Sports Arena. I'm loving this place because it's such an escape from the psychosis. You bring what you can. You get a small budget. You play until you run out. You play until you lose or win, and then you stop. If you go there with a mentality like I'm going to win all this money, then you'll lose it all. If you go there with a couple $100 and you're like, we're just going to play some games and have a good time, maybe you win. And if you don't, you get to hang out with your friends. You get to have some drinks. You get to laugh. You get to do the big countdown. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to have the big celebration at a very densely packed, casino. And they've got I think they're doing BGs. We're not giving this stuff up. There are people posting on social media like, we didn't do Christmas. We canceled our Christmas. And I'm like, I went to 6. I went to 6 Christmases. Christmas-I? What's the plural of Christmases? We went to 6 Christmas parties. I think 6, maybe even more. I don't know. I can't remember. And we're going to do another one because that was when we went to Chicago. I'm not giving this stuff up. I remember waking up and coming down to the tree and seeing the presents. And we were not a wealthy family, but you'd open it up and you'd get socks or whatever that we could afford. And it was like, hey, I remember one time when I was a very little kid, we got a Nintendo. We got a Nintendo with Mario Brothers. Man, those are the days, huh? That's the family tradition. When you're a little kid and you're all excited, there's something to look forward to. And it's all being stripped away. From timcast.com. The latest surge seems to have left almost no country or region untouched. According to a statement from Mayor Bill de Blasio's office in New York City, the Times Square tradition of New Year's Eve will be scaled back with fewer people and everyone required to wear a mask. And you remember what happened last year? When Bill de Blasio and his wife danced in Times Square after kicking everybody out? They lock it down and then they dance in Times Square. These people are so evil, man. It's almost like dancing on graves. That's the craziest thing to me, too, throughout the last year when all the nurses were doing like dancing in the hospitals or whatever. And it's like there's dead people all over the place. You're at capacity and you were literally filming yourselves doing a choreographed dance. And the left's response was just like, but they need the reprieve. They need to do something. I'm like, dude, you're dancing on graves. Graves. You're in a hospital. There was one video where a lady was like, oh my God, is this why we can't get any help? Because they're dancing? And she films them all like dancing through the hallways. And she's like, we need help. I'm just sick. I'm sick of the tribalism. The cult, these people are insane. Nurses should not be dancing. Could you imagine your house is on fire and the fire department shows up and they're like, oh yeah, we're dancing. It's like, please help. My house is burning down. They're like, hey, we're on break. It doesn't work that way. It's amazing. That's what people said. They need a break. They're on break. They're dancing. If they're on break, I got to be honest. Fine. Do what you want to do on your break, dance or otherwise. But it is not confidence building when you have people sitting there being like, my father is dying. And then someone marches down the hallway doing some jig. I think that's terrible. I think it's terrible. They say across the ocean in Europe, some major cities have already announced they've entirely or mostly canceling their celebration plans. As of Christmas Day, this is what some of the world's cities have chosen to do. Athens, no fireworks. Berlin, strict restrictions. Edinburgh, what do they got? They announced details for post-Christmas restrictions. London, New Delhi, Paris, Rome, locking it down, shutting it down. And there you go. So I don't know. I don't know what y'all are doing. I'll tell you this. Ain't nobody taking away my holidays. I got COVID. It was really, really bad. It was the worst illness I've ever experienced. No joke, no lie. Hands down, I thought I was going to be in the hospital with this stuff. But I know that the mortality rate is relatively low. It's not like airborne Ebola or anything like that. But it was bad. And there's long-term health effects. And I think I still have some. I really, really do. I don't think it's actually causing me any detriment. It's just kind of feel it in the lungs, On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being completely fine and 10 being extreme lingering health effects, it's like a 1.1. I'm like, wow, I can still kind of feel it, Wonder what that's all about. But I've been feeling great. I've been feeling better than ever. Been eating better. I've been taking vitamins. And ever since getting sick, I've just generally been feeling a lot better. But it was really, really bad. And I'm grateful to the doctors and the treatment that we got. So I'll tell you this, man. I do not say any of this stuff about going to these celebrations, flaunting or flouting the rules and flaunting my health status or challenging it. I don't want to knock on wood. Or, I don't want to tempt the fates. You get all these people who are like, yeah, COVID, so what? And they get it and they're like, oh, help me. Like, it's really bad. But I don't know what you do. Okay? So it's one thing to say, here's where I think the safe place to be is respect how bad COVID is, especially the variants. They're saying Omicron is more mild or whatever. I don't care. Respect the seriousness of it. But live your life. Understand the risks. Keep your hands washed. There's simple things you can do. Sometimes wearing a mask does make sense. If you're sick, wear a mask. I don't care if you've got COVID or you don't. If you got a cold, be polite, wear a mask. Stop the droplets from getting in people's faces. But live your life. Don't shut down your plans, your holidays, wrap people in plastic wrap or whatever nonsense they're doing. And they're doing it. It's crazy. You got to live your life. Take it seriously. Wash your hands. Make sure things are clean. But to be this pro-authoritarian mandate stuff is just wrong. As for Joe, throw it back to the opening story, man. Oh, good for him. I don't know if this was just because he can't do it or because he's outright like, dude, I don't trust him. I ain't doing it. Either way, the right thing is happening. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.